science?
Well, I would want to agree with what James has said. That Raila knew how to connect. But not just to connect, he would connect even with a little child, a baby. He would have a conversation with the baby. He was able to connect with the youth, connect with women, and connect with people in his generation. He knew what to tell them. He knew what these people expected of him. So that ability to connect at all levels made him, created this politician that it will take a long, long time before we see somebody like the statue of Raila Odinga. And then as he has grown, remember he was also a youth, like what we have right now, the Gen Zs. But now he has grown over time. And with growth in age has come experience, has come more wisdom. I think that Raila, I can say, is a man who was full of wisdom. I remember in 2007, because I was in charge of KICC, and that was a command center. And for close to, I think, 3 or so months, I worked so closely with the late Kivuitu, very, very closely. And, to the run-up of elections of 2007, at some point, there was a lot of pressure from the establishment. People really wanted to manage Kivuitu. But because I was in charge of KICC, where, the things were happening, the tiling center, the operations, I had the privilege of interacting with Kivuitu from morning to late evening. And I think I was the one who was managing him to some extent. Okay? If there's one election that I believe Raila won, flat out, is 2007. Okay? In fact, I can now reveal that the portrait that was done, President-elect, I think it was between me and Ayub Savla. I gave Savla some money to go and print this portrait, President-elect, because it was so evident, even from the chairman of the Electoral Commission, that Raila indeed had won. But from nowhere, I'm telling you, from nowhere, somebody else was declared the winner, okay? And of course, chaos erupted. And this country was almost brought down to its knees, okay? I'm sure that time you're not in NTV, but Joe and probably James Smart had just begun their career, So that is the time you would have expected that this country was, going to be turned into another banana republic, maybe something worse than Somalia, okay? But it took Raila Odinga, it took his wisdom, patience, to extend a handshake with the then President Kibaki. You can imagine how painful it is. You have gone through a very grueling campaign period. And campaigns in Kenya, take a lot of energy. They take, the amount of energy that you put in terms of minutes, or in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of manpower. You can't believe it. It goes into billions of shillings if you were to convert all those resources into money. But it had to take someone like Raila to say, you know what? This country is greater than Raila Odinga. And although I know that I've won these elections, I'm ready to play a second fiddle for the sake of this country, for the sake of future generations. Let me tell you this, and this is what I can now reveal. Okay? At some point, small fish. Just left private sector and joined government. That was small fish. At least I imagine a small fish. But how people from government, the people who actually had power in government, several of them called me. In fact, Mutua is one of them because he's on record. I can now quote him. Mutua called, yes, Karen Mutua called me and they said, you know what? We know you are the one who is managing the chairman of the Electoral Commission. I said, I'm only hosting him. I'm not managing him. How can I manage a chairman of an electoral body? How can I manage a Mzee that is much older than me? But I got calls from very senior and powerful officials. And one of them actually threatened me. Said, you know what? Philip, we want you to ask the chairman of the Electoral Commission to announce Mwai Kibaki as a winner. And I said, why do I get those powers from? Where? And the guy mentioned a few names who are seated around the late Mwai Kibaki, my president. I think that's the only president I personally have had since I was born 6 decades ago. I don't know that I can call the others president, but anyway, they occupied an office. So these fellows called me and issued threats and said, if you don't, if you're not able to convince Nelly Kivuitu to make that announcement, just know that we're in government. And I was given the names of people who are around government. But what really disturbed me is that the belief that a junior state officer can actually manipulate a whole chairman of an electoral body, okay? Later on, just before 6 o'clock, okay, another call came in, and because Kivuitu had put off his phone, they actually spoke to Kivuitu from my line. Okay, they spoke to him, and whatever they told him, a few minutes later, because I'm the one who took Kivuitu from where he was and secured Kivuitu at the VIP lounge on first floor at KSCC. Okay, so when now, so the old man just walking with a file around the room, and he eventually asked me, young man, wapi yo meza nataka kutangaza. At that point, I didn't know what Kivuitu was going to announce. But anyway, he eventually announced what the majority of the commissioners had decided, that Mwai Kibaki had. My point being, even the state machinery had actually admitted, maybe not publicly, but they knew that Raila had won, that the only way they could stop him is through Kivuitu. And for Raila, several months or several weeks down the line to say, you know what, I will do this, not because of Raila Odinga, but I'll do it for the sake of this country. This is the man that we're going to take decades, if not a century, to replace.
The people's president,
yes, indeed.
He crowned himself at some point. I think those are, if you look at the pictures
yes,
that are coming out, earlier on, and also of different places in Kisumu, or Port of Farm.